know how many of you in your life, in your workspace, have actually just stuck to the work of providing that very narrow level of care. I bet no one. I bet most of you have basically, gotten involved in your patients' lives. You have gotten involved in asking them questions about what brought them to the hospital. I know of nurses who have taken, this is in my town where I teach, I know of a nurse who takes her day off to go and visit with the children in the cancer ward. Okay, this is on her day off. And I bet there's hundreds of you in this room who do that on your day off as well, okay? So everyone in these professions, as an educator, I talk to my students well beyond what is prescribed in my syllabus. And so we basically talk and work to bring up a whole human being, to reconstitute and provide care to a whole human being, not just within the parameters of the workspace. So this is why this kind of work is actually impossible to fully quantify, okay? As I said, nurses often spend time with patients on their day off. Teachers often spend their own money to stock classrooms, okay? So, I bet nurses do the same. Up there in the slide, you say the case of school lunches during strike action. This is, most of you know of the strike wave that set off. I went to West Virginia to speak to the teachers when the West Virginia school strikes happened. And one of the things that the teachers did in West Virginia was the schools were closed. This is a very, very poor state. A lot of the children coming to the public schools, the school lunches are the only hot meal they get during the whole day. So when the school is closed during the strike, the children do not have that one big meal. So what did the teachers do? The teachers worked with the churches and with the parents to provide meals during the strike. This is what the teachers did. So, again, this is way beyond, social studies and algebra. So, but this is the kind of work that life-making work and people-making work involve. This is also, the end product of this kind of work is therefore a person, not a thing, okay? We are not making widgets, we are making people. And so this is why this kind of work you cannot really fully quantify, you cannot clock in a particular way, and this is why most of us in this work feel that we are doing way more than what the manager's scrutiny or the chart indicates, right? So you give your whole life to take care of people. Performance is particularly difficult to measure in gendered jobs, health, education, childcare, okay? Because that ticking clock does not tell you when to stop if a patient is in pain. It doesn't tell you when to stop if a child continues to cry. You don't stop. You try to provide comfort and care. However, under the system that we live in, capitalism, wealth is measured in dead things, not in living people, okay? So we measure our wealth in the growth chart of the economy, which is what? More dead things. A country's people, I come from India, a country's people might be starving. Half of its children might be suffering from malnutrition, and yet the growth charts tell you that India is doing fantastic. It's sending people to the moon. So this is absolutely insane way of measuring wealth in society through dead things and not through the life and wealth of living beings like people.
Woo!
in mind, we can then talk about gendered work or women's work in particular. So first of all, we do a lot of paid work, jobs in the care sector. So globally, 70% of the health and social workforce are women, compared to 41% in all employment sectors. As you know much better than I do, nurses and midwives often provide care in communities where no other health professionals exist. So women work disproportionately in this kind of care sector, and that's the paid work that we do in this society. But, and all of us in this room know that this paid work would be impossible without the unpaid work that we do outside of the workspace, right? So all work that makes paid work possible in the first place is the unpaid work we do. Someone has to make the beds, someone has to shower, has to produce food in order for people to get to the workplace in the first place. And in most families and communities, that unpaid work of preparing for work is done by women, okay? So from cooking, cleaning, to fetching water, firewood, taking care of children and the elderly, women carry out at least 2.5 times more unpaid household and care work than men. In the United States, women perform 9 hours more of care work per week than men do still. So this is something that we must also keep in mind. Now, if this is the sort of framework, then we have to introduce a new concept here, comrades, and that is the neoliberal policies that we all have to deal with. So if this is the framework of people making under capitalism, where people making is always undervalued than profit making, if women perform most of the work of people making, both paid and unpaid, then what happened actually under neoliberalism? Did things change? And under neoliberalism, I want to say that things got much worse. So neoliberal policies globally shifted resources from the public sector to the private sector, reduced benefits to recipients, affected the lives of clients and workers alone. So for instance, in the global south, food subsidies were removed when IMF and World Bank forced these countries to liberalize their economy, which means they said, you're spending too much money on food, medicines, water resources, etc. Please remove those because your country needs to grow. So public distribution systems of food, medical facilities, all of these were privatized or fully scrapped by these countries in the global south. In the global north, as you know, unions were dismantled or attacked, and public services were privatized and commodified, okay? So since the 1970s, for 40 years, neoliberalism systematically corroded institutions that the working class needs for its life-making. Hospitals and schools are privatized, even public parks were sold off. Now, what this did is two things. One, it moved the burden of care and people making to entirely on family units on one hand, okay? So the state kind of stepped back. It cut schools and hospital services and, took money from the public coffers. And so the work of people making moved primarily and became the burden of individual family units. But on the other hand, these works were also commodified and privatized and sold in the open market. So women had a double jeopardy, okay? Women had a double jeopardy in the sense that they had to do now more work in the home because, they had to walk longer distances to collect water or firewood or provide medical support to their family. But on the other hand, their jobs were privatized or the money taken away, so women had to often do 2 jobs in order to keep up. I mean, there are horrific stories of teachers and nurses actually doing several jobs in order to simply pay bills. So both of these things happen simultaneously under neoliberalism. So what we have then under neoliberalism is in the workplace, paid care work, such as nurses and teachers, were de-skilled, broken down into meaningless, discrete, commodifiable parts. Okay, so for teachers, as you know, this was, high-stake testing and nonsense like that. For nurses, it is the same. If nobody is caring that nurses are actually taking care of human beings, it's about how much time did you spend on the bedside, and have you spent this much? Then move on. Okay, so this is. This kind of a framework is thrust upon this kind of care work workplaces. And in the home, unpaid care work then becomes more onerous because there's less time to do it and more effort is realized to do it. The result of neoliberalism then for 40 years has been an absolute veneration, a religious veneration of production, okay? So production of commodities, growth of the stock market, and all this comes at the price of another thing, and that is our planet, okay? So the more production that is necessary, the wheels need to churn faster, more commodities need to be produced, useless commodities, more cement for China, more cars for Germany. I mean, these products are churned out ceaselessly, which in the long run then creates this absolutely unstable world of ecological balance. Okay. So we have this kind of idea of neoliberal production that is damaging to both the workplace, the home, and ultimately at a planetary level. So what is the result of this? So the result of this is the effort to create an assembly line of people making, which creates in all of us absolute burnout, depression, which jeopardizes the health and welfare of entire communities. Because when teachers and nurses want to leave their professions, that is the breakdown of society.